Hello, welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. I'm William Gallagher. Our sponsor this week is Notion, more about that later. And I am joined by Wes Hilliard, who thinks he's here to discuss all sorts of things, the Samsung's phone, TikTok, but actually, no. Wes, you are here to be told off. Do you know why?
Oh, no, but I'm probably in trouble for something.
Okay, I thought some guilty secret might come out there if I didn't say what it was. It's to do with your Mac Mini review, which is an excellent review. Your 3-month thing, really enjoyed it, but there's a big but in it. But we will come to that in a moment. Should say first, if you're an Apple Insider Plus subscriber, then I think this is so interesting. Actually, Wes, this was your idea. Can you explain what Apple Insider Plus, our extended ad-free edition, will include this week?
Well, we've danced around this topic a few times before, and so I figured it might be fun to have it out, kind of designing our ideal Apple product, and maybe we'll get into an app, maybe a device, but just wanted to discuss what would we want Apple to make if maybe we were CEO for a day.
Right.
Or, I don't know, 10 years of development anyway.
Well, yeah, okay, a blue Apple car. I particularly love that you picked this now because I actually am trying to develop an app. Not to sell it, it's just to do something I want and things. So we can talk about that later. If you don't know what Apple Insider Plus is, it's a bit where you get Plus on Apple Insider. It's the extended version for subscribers, and you can join us through Apple Podcast subscriptions or through Patreon. Details in the notes, and it would be a treat to have you. But first, Apple Insider not minus, Apple Insider proper, in which lots of news this time, but partly because I tease you about telling Wes off, and partly because it's the thing that's most on my mind. Wes, try to deter me from telling me off. Explain your 3-month in Mac Mini review.
Well, I thought it was funny that Mike asked me to write this review because I did buy a Mac Mini pretty much at launch, and I've had it this whole time, so I've definitely had some use with it, but I am not primarily a Mac user, and I tried to think about how to write a review about a product that's not a primary part of my setup, so I took the approach of writing it as an accessory in my greater ecosystem.
A Mac as an accessory. No, carry on. I'll get over this someday. Yeah, it's...
Right, because I primarily use my iPad, and then there's Apple Vision Pro, which its use case ebbs and flows with time. I like to use it whenever I can for whatever I can. It's nice to be inside of it. I am wearing it right now, sitting on a beach in Bora Bora as we speak, so that's fun. But it's still early, and developers haven't brought everything they could to it, and the Mac actually makes for a great middleman. So I want Apple Intelligence to do certain things, like I use it to proofread my text when I write something. It's actually been a very useful feature. It's one I use all the time. It does occasionally do something weird, but I proofread the text after it proofreads it, so I make sure nothing weird happens. But anyway, I can't do that on Apple Vision Pro, but I can bring the Mac into Apple Vision Pro and do a proofread there. So a lot of little functionality. I also discussed how I use it for gaming, not necessarily, console gaming because I'm doing that on my PlayStation, but more like emulators that don't work on iPad. You can't run a GameCube, so I've set up a GameCube emulator on the Mac Mini and figure out a cool way to play it in the Vision Pro as if it was the native app. So a lot of fun stuff in this review.
My problem with it is actually I think you summarised it because you actually said it's great, and I thought, yes, I've got him. He's seen the light, Mac, as something else, as a thing on the shelf, as an accessory, and it's like it was a roller coaster. That review. This gorgeous Mac Mini is an ornament in your house. It just happens to be a very useful ornament. I take it I'm no further nearer even to persuading you to ditch Apple Vision Pro and be a proper Mac user.
Well, I was what you could call a proper Mac user for a couple years, or maybe a year, I think, when I used the 14-inch MacBook Pro when it first came out. Stage Manager was in and out, and there was a lot going on with iPad that a lot of us were unhappy with, but more importantly, the Mac was having a revolution, Apple Silicon and everything. So I bought the M1 Pro MacBook Pro, right? Yeah, M1 Pro MacBook Pro 14-inch. And that was awesome. I used it for a while, and then Apple came out with Stage Manager and all of that stuff and made iPad a better platform, external monitor and all that stuff, and then I shifted fully back to iPad. So I did use a Mac for a year, and because I really felt like, as a writer at Apple Insider, I needed to do more than just live in a little corner of iPad land and pretend that other stuff didn't exist. So I got a good grasp of what modern Mac OS feels like, of what all these platforms say and do, and then I gradually went back to where I'm comfortable, and that's more of an iOS, iPad OS paradigm.
All right,
and so Mac Mini feels like a good place where it is right now in my workflow.
All right, I promise I won't beat on about this, but you use a Mac, you're supposed to be seduced by it and never touch anything else again, and it didn't work. You had a fling, really. Yeah. That's what you did.
I've said it before, Mac OS and the Mac paradigm, the desktop PC Windows paradigm, I feel like I'm teleported back in time every time I use it. This little mouse cursor from the 1980s and these pull down menus, and just the interaction paradigm is still the same over all these years and has improved over time. And it has stayed this way because it's good. Just like the military still uses a lot of electronics from the 60s and 70s, not because they are cheap, but because they're trustworthy. They're actually going to operate instead of some newfangled thing that's going to break every week. Mac OS feels the same way. It's reliable, and you can go to it and know what you're going to get out of it. Whereas iPad OS and Apple Vision Pro especially is newer and feels more exciting. Just every little thing that they change and tweak about it, all the new paradigms, all the new apps. It's the new hotness, and it's where I feel like is more fun and more whimsical things are happening.
Okay, I'll just weep later. But you did very specifically write about your M4 Mac Mini, and I came within a pixel of buying one. I just held off because I'm interested in the Mac Studio that becoming and things like this. But one of the things that could bend me back to the Mac Mini is there's also been news this week of yet another way to update the SSD in an M4 Mac Mini. I'm going to imagine you know about this, but I don't think you've done it. Have you?
No, I don't need to. If I need extra storage, I'll use an external SSD. I actually didn't mention it in the review, funny enough, but I bought the 512 gigabyte model. My iPad Pro has 1 terabyte in it, so if that tells you anything. But I don't rely on the Mac for storage, and what I need of the Mac for storage is more long-term or media access, which are both very feasible from solid-state external drives.
I realise I'm sounding a bit pro-Mac on account of, I am really, but I did have a horrendous experience a few years ago with an Intel Mac Mini. Budget was really tight. I bought like the lowest possible storage capacity you could get at the time, and it was brilliant for a couple of months. And then after that, there was nothing I could do to stop it filling up. In the morning, I would delete gigabytes and gigabytes. I mean, I threw away such a lot of stuff, but by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it would somehow have filled itself up again. And to the extent that it wasn't just, it's quite hard to find a place to save a document, but the entire Mac would slow down. You're on deadline, you're writing a copy, and at one point, it was taking between 6 and 7 minutes for me to save a document, from hitting save to it being done. 7 minutes. That's what a lack of space does it. And I've kind of overreacted to this since, and I will always buy as much internal storage as I could possibly find. So I got quite excited about this ability to upgrade. The story being that rather than paying Apple more money at the time of ordering, you could later on take out their SSD and put in a higher capacity one that will be much cheaper. I mean, hundreds of dollars cheaper than anything Apple will ever offer. That seems, though, like an unlikely thing for Apple to allow. When we first heard about this last year and somebody was doing it with like soldering irons and things, it felt like the most enormous hack. But now it seems, I mean, I don't know that it's like consumer friendly, but I feel like I could do it. And I didn't feel that before. Yeah.
It's very doable. It's a slotted SSD, which means you can basically just go on the market and buy an SSD and trade it out. Now, Apple probably doesn't officially support this. It probably voids some kind of warranty. If your Mac breaks with this installed and you take it to the Apple store, they're going to blame it on that. It doesn't matter if it's a fan that malfunctioned. It's your SSD's fault. So this is one of those do it at your own risk kind of things, and you will save money. And when you're discussing a $1,000 plus computer, and you're talking about a couple $100, it's a risk versus reward system. Are you willing to save $200 on more memory, or would you rather spend $200 and have more support? That's kind of the trade-off that you're making. So do it at your own risk, but it's cool
not quite.
that it's there.
Yeah, ordinarily I would agree with you there, except there is, of course, the fact that with Apple's internal storage, you get what you pay for at the start and there's nothing you can do about it. With this option, you could go with Apple's until your warranty runs out and then upgrade.
Right. Yeah, years later, you can change the storage out, do something. I mean, and storage is always getting cheaper. So this Mac Mini that I just bought is going to last 10 years if I keep it easily. And, 10 years from now, a 10 terabyte SSD the size of my pinky will probably be $40, right? So you can just go in there and swap it out. Like that's the kind of cool thing here, this long-term stuff. And I think Apple might have done this on purpose to appease regulators, but they're never going to tell you that it's actually user swappable.
Right, interesting. Well, it's starting to get very specific about my interests here, sorry. But one thing, are pluggable SSD drives all the same size? Could I just order any of them and know that they would fit?
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of different sizes and shapes. Go to the review. There's specific kinds, and the one that you're going to use here, I think, only goes up to 4 terabytes right now, if I'm thinking right. And I think an 8 terabyte version might be coming. But yeah, this isn't something that you can just go hot swap from your PlayStation, right? Okay,
all right. Well, better than it used to be, at least. I'd start to say that was very much my own personal interest. So is this, I'm afraid, because you wrote a review that I wanted to ask you about. With my Mac Mini, I have a very wide monitor, 49-inch monitor, and I love that width. I'm looking at it now, and I have 5 documents open. I'm using them all. It's great. But the top to bottom width feels very narrow, and the resolution, the only good thing about the resolution is it's a lot better than the really cheap, crappy monitor I used to have. So I walk in anywhere. I walk into an Apple store and I have to not look at the monitors. They're so much nicer. But you've just reviewed something that's a 5K monitor and isn't one of Apple's ludicrously expensive ones. The Asus ProArt display and things. Should I trade in and buy?
Well, every time you mention your monitor, I always have to laugh because it brings to mind, and I'll say it every time, so I know you've heard it before, the scene in Avengers when Tony Stark asks how he sees everything. That he's standing in front of a podium on the helicarrier, and he's like, "How do you look at all these displays?" And he says, "I turn my head," and Tony Stark says, "That sounds exhausting."
Okay.
So
I don't remember you saying that. I obviously blocked it from my mind, but okay. I mean, I grant you I have to walk from one side of the screen to the other, but
Nick Fury, that's the other guy. But anyway, so this monitor is very much your standard 16:9, 5K, 27-inch. Why is this important? Well, go back 2 years, go back 5 years, go back 10 years, and Apple's been making 5K 27-inch-ish displays, these Retina grade displays, for I want to say going on a decade, if I'm doing my math correctly. So everyone's been saying, "Oh well, Apple's panels are great; they're just expensive, and any day now, we're going to see third parties adopting Retina grade displays." Well, it took till now. Now, of course, there have been 5K plus 6K displays at this size for years, third party, but they were massively expensive. Might as well get an Apple display. And up until the studio display, you couldn't get an Apple display. You'd have to go get an LG Ultrafine, and again, just kind of a dud. So there's been this weird middleman. No one knew what to do. Studio's display came out. Everyone rushed to it and said, "This is the one to get." And then everyone else said, "Well, I'm going to wait for the cheaper one." Well, here we are. years after the studio display, we're finally seeing the third-party market really, truly enter this place. And Asus isn't the only one doing this. These panels are being sold across many different brands. This is just happens to be the first one that I've reviewed, and it's great. It's your standard backlit display. It's not OLED, LCD, I believe, right? And then there's this matte texture over the front, like every monitor seems to have these days. I've only ever reviewed one monitor that's glossy that isn't Apple's. It's how rare that is, but it's fine. It's a plastic giant piece of thing that is very straightforward design wise. It has a big logo on the front. I think it has a Asus sticker and a legal disclaimer on the stand that you can see every minute that you're sitting in front of this monitor. So just obvious not Apple design choices. But if you want a monitor for under $1,000 that's basically Retina, this is a really good option.
Is it ridiculous that you just put me off the whole thing by the sticker? So, because I can't bear PC laptops that have Intel Inside written on it. I know. That might be why I bought it. I don't need to be told every day. But you said 10 years of the Apple thing, and I know you're right, because it's about 12 years, I think, since I left the BBC, and I was buying my own gear then. And I remember I really wanted a 27-inch iMac, but I was holding off because we believed a better screen was coming. And in the end, I couldn't wait any longer, bought one. So I got the last non-Retina 27-inch iMac, and still I thought that screen was gorgeous. It's better than what I've got even now, all these years later. I'd still be on that machine. I mean, I hammered it to death, like 8 years of millions of words, and it kind of broke its back somewhere. But I miss that size. I miss that quality. How do you find the resolution of a screen like that compared to what you see through your Apple Vision Pro, though?
Well, so there's been a lot of debate over what the actual resolution of the Vision Pro is and if you can even call it Retina. All those silly terms and science aside, inside of the Vision Pro, the monitor that I'm looking at that's hosting the podcast view and QuickTime, I can look over and see, might as well be a crystal clear 5K display right in front of me. I couldn't tell you if it was any different. I don't see a pixel. The text looks crisp and clear. Whatever magic Apple's doing with their foveated rendering and these high resolution lenses, can't tell a difference. This monitor, not as clear, funny enough, as the Vision Pro, because there is a matte cover on the front. Now, they've done something they have a proprietary name for, of course, for their matting that's supposed to be thinner and better than ever, that dispels more light, but you can't even see it. You can still see it. It's not as bad as some matting is, but it's definitely still
this
matting.
Episode is brought to you by
so
Oracle.
Even versus a studio
even
display,
if you think it's
not going to be as sharp.
AI is suddenly
that's because it's a matte display,
everywhere,
not because
from
of the display
self-driving
quality.
cars to
I
molecular
stick on
medicine to
49
business efficiency.
If
it's
you're
not in your industry
You're going to
yet,
get to the
it's
point
coming
soon where a monitor
But
of
AI
your
needs a
style
lot of
is going
speed
to
and
be
computing
Retina
power. So
for a
how
relatively
do you
simple
compete
price, and I would
without
recommend
costs
waiting on that.
spiraling out of control?
I would
Time to upgrade
deeply
to the
miss
next
the
generation
width,
of the cloud.
of it,
Oracle
but,
Cloud
yeah,
Infrastructure,
the quality,
or
but
OCI.
still, especially because I still have my 14-inch MacBook Pro. I use it a lot
for your
that screen
infrastructure,
is so
database
utterly
application development,
gorgeous.
plus all your
And
AI
once you see
and
Retina,
machine
it's hard to go
learning
back.
workloads.
Okay,
costs
actually, I mean, I think you can
50%
hear
less
hesitation
computer
in my
and
voice.
80%
There's something
less
we want to talk
for
about this week
networking.
that
So
needs to be
you're
me
saving
because
a
I'm
pile
here and
of
I know about it.
Thousands of
but I
businesses
kind of want to
have
get it out
already
the way because
upgraded
it's
to OCI,
depressing.
including
It's a bit of
Vodafone,
politics.
Thomson Reuters,
Politics and
and
Apple.
Suno AI.
They never cross
Right
before,
now,
do they?
Oracle is
I
offering to
understand
cut
that you've
your
had a bit of a
current cloud bill
change
in
of
half
government
if you move to
over there in the
OCI.
States.
It's for
Is
new
that right?
US customers
Is
with
that
minimum
all
financial commitment.
happening?
Offer
Yeah, I
ends
mean,
March 31st.
And it's
See if
it's
your
going
company qualifies
as
for this
we all
special
expected.
offer
I won't
at
get into it,
oracle.com.
but definitely within
AppleInsider
expectations.
15.
Yeah, within,
That's
I was going to say within
oracle.com
tolerances, but who can tolerate this?
AppleInsider
Here in the
digits
UK, we
15.
had our change of
And thanks to
government
Oracle for
last
supporting
year,
the Apple
and there's been a
Insider
lot of complaints
podcast.
about the new Labour government, and I don't think they've been terribly fair because so many years of really quite specific damage. I mean, the last government took Britain out of Europe. You know, that's not going to be healed for it. So I'm willing to give these new people time, except this week, yet again, the British government has announced that they are going to launch a new IT project. And one thing is, they never work. There's actually statistics about this. One of the government's own studies said, I think this was a couple of years ago, maybe 2020, of all the IT projects going on, less than 2% were even highly likely to complete on time. The rest were, possibly. I think there was a probably, and it went down to it's never going to happen kind of thing. That is likely what's going to happen here, but what is supposed to be happening is that Britain is going to have a digital driving license app. So a digital wallet with driving license, passport and various other documents. And what depressed me about it, apart from the fact that it'll be here this year and it won't be, is that this is another case where Britain is going its own way when it truly doesn't have to. Oh. I mean, Apple Wallet does this. Google has something in Android, doesn't it? That's what you're going to say. It's here.
I'll give you a little ray of hope because while this isn't ideal, and I'm going to assume, especially initially, it's probably not going to support Apple Wallet, but there are cases where I think some of the states in the United States even have their own bespoke app that holds your digital license, and then it can donate that information. Like once they establish the app and the system to be digital, then they also simultaneously support Apple Wallet. So there still is some hope that this app will have some interoperability with Apple Wallet, or at the same time will launch support for Apple Wallet for your IDs. And that brings up a good point too. I would love to see Apple Wallet support more types of identification as well beyond driver's licenses, passports being one. But I also think in the case of traffic stops, it would be interesting to have our car insurance in the Apple Wallet. I see a future where the police carry a NFC capable thing. Think of a register at an Apple store. It's an iPhone with a case on it. And you take your phone and tap it to it, and it just hands over your ID and insurance and that NFC tap, and you're done. That would be the ideal system here. And I'm hoping that all these technologies are leading that way in the next 10 years. But as much as it sucks, I think maybe the UK is working towards this, and maybe it's not time to despair just yet.
Well, before you threw sunlight my way, I'll throw darkness your way. But just quickly, you reminded me there about cars and checkpoints and things. Some man this week got fined in France for using his phone, I think it was an iPhone, to pay at a toll booth for it. Because even though the car was stopped at the toll booth, it was regarded as being on the road, therefore moving, therefore he was using his phone while he was driving, and he has been fined for it. The fact that it's one person, so it's a bit of a rare occurrence, maybe an overzealous fining at the time, but that's a case of regulation and technology not quite catching up. I was just driving in Ireland and it was so fast. Actually, because I wear my watch on the wrong wrist, I was actually using a card to go through toll booths and things, but it could have been the phone, and it's a doddle. Yeah,
there's actually nothing in the United States, I believe, people can correct me if I'm wrong, that says you can't use your phone at a traffic stop or anything like that. So if you're at a red light, or as long as your car is not moving and you're looking at your phone, there's nothing anyone can do about it. It is when the car is in motion. And I believe, if I remember right, in Virginia, because we learned a lot about this, police would come and talk to us in the military and tell us not to speed. And they would tell us that the law is actually like, you cannot be actively typing on a keyboard, basically. They said that if like certain interactions are different, because as long as you're using a hands-free device or Bluetooth in the car, which they can't tell that you're doing that from the road, they can just see that you're looking at your phone. Unless you're actively trying to type, they can't pull you over. So I don't know. Some different police have different ideas, but I think it is kind of funny that someone got fined for paying at a toll booth.
I think before we speak next time, you should probably do a road test. Drive around a few states, see what happens. Yeah? I'm sure you can bill the fines to AppleInsider research thing. Darkness. Let me finish the darkness quickly. I am more despairing of Britain and this app thing because I live here, I suppose, but also because we have been here before with the COVID app. Britain basically said, Apple and Google, you don't know what you're doing. We're doing our own Google app. And there's a lot of suspicion about why and data harvesting and things, but there is no suspicion at all about the fact that it didn't work. $12 million spent, and it just didn't do anything. And Prime Minister at the time, Brian Johnson, actually stood up in Parliament and said, no one in the world has a working COVID app. And it just enraged me, because that day he could have gone to the German website and downloaded the open source copy of their app. So the inability to get anything right despairs me. So I want to move away from this and talk about something that's perfectly sane and sensible. Like, for example, TikTok. Yeah?
Right. So this is back in the news, if only because it still involves Apple. We're not going to keep talking about TikTok if there's any, like, this might be the end of the TikTok discussion for a while anyway. But basically, since we last recorded, we recorded on Wednesday last week, so a little early. TikTok went down for about 15 hours and came back. And then basically on a promise, and we won't get into it, but it's a very thin-veiled promise that can actually be enforced. So if the Justice Department decides that they want to fine TikTok and Oracle for operating in the United States right now, they can, totally within legal reason. The president can actually not have jurisdiction over stopping the enforcement of laws. So his executive order is mostly for show, but I don't think anyone's going to actually prosecute, because then it would be this whole thing. Anyway, they're mostly safe, but we'll see if someone decides to try to do something about it. In the meantime, Apple and Google have not reinstated the apps to the App Store, even though the ban has quote unquote been lifted. It's not been lifted, but there's an order. Anyway, Apple and Google don't trust this order, which they shouldn't, because it doesn't have any legal standing. So they have not brought TikTok back to the app stores. And if you deleted your app during those 15 hours, you actually cannot get it back right now. And if you go on eBay, you can buy a new iPhone with TikTok installed for about $50,000. So.
No, really? Okay. I mean, I'd want it to be, iPhone 16 Pro Max for that kind of money. Sorry, are you seriously about that? People are selling. How are they selling?
Well, I don't think they're. They've put the price, but no one's actually paid it. I don't think.
Right. Okay.
There's definitely some on there that's probably sold for a few hundred more than retail. But yeah, it's all very silly. Don't buy an iPhone with TikTok on it. Either it's going away or it's not. And if it doesn't go away, it'll come back to the App Store. Simple as that. So how does it come back to the App Store? Do you know, William?
Well, I'm assuming what's happened so far is that TikTok's check to President Trump cleared, and so that's why that's gone ahead. But it's still got to rumble through some kind of legislation before it's undone.
We don't need to get too far into it. And William's joking, guys. Calm down. What actually happened is the president had a phone call with the CEO who attended the inauguration. And so they've been having very close communications about what to do about this. And the administration is assuring that they're moving forward with ideas. Right now, the plan is, on at least for the American side of things, the plan is to sell half of a stake to the United States and then divvy that up between a private entity like Elon Musk and the U.S. government, which is illegal, but it's what they said. I'm not the one making the policy decisions here, but the United States government cannot control an app that is used by the public in that way, a for-profit app. It would have to fundamentally change how TikTok works. So all that aside, and the issues with the claims, there is something in there that suggests that there might be a deal where the administration allows TikTok to sell only half of the company's control. Now, if you look at what TikTok in China is talking about, they're actually talking about keeping full control and just opening servers to host everything in the United States, which I believe they kind of already do, but this would be more of an official stance of no servers in China, no data in China, kind of, I think, how China did for their data, how Apple has servers there that hosts iCloud content for Chinese users. Mm-hmm. So it's a back and forth. We'll see what happens. Basically, one of maybe two or three things is going to happen. Some kind of sale will take place, whether it's 50% or all of it to a United States company. A deal is made that allows TikTok to sidestep the law and continue operations. The law is ultimately repealed by Congress, not the president, does not have that authority. Congress would have to vote and repeal the law, allowing TikTok to continue operations. Or finally, TikTok is just banned. And after the 75-day term that Trump has asked for outside of his jurisdiction. So again, this is all very early, still finding out details almost every day. Yesterday during an interview, he said that TikTok is worthless. So I don't know. Well, let me be specific. Worthless unless they sell to the United States. In China, it's worthless. In America, it's worth $1 trillion, I think is paraphrasing something he said. But anyway, we're walking a fine line here. Trust us, we're not trying to be mean here. But yeah, TikTok, this whole situation's weird. Apple, and we will say Apple will not make a move until a more legal entity like a law or a sale, something that says it is not going to get a... Do you know how much the fine is, by the way?
Oh, no, I don't. No.
$5,000 per user.
Wow. And
Yeah.
there's 150 million users in the States.
Yeah, it's somewhere around $850 billion,
Okay.
which is ridiculous. But that is the real fine that Oracle right now. If someone actually went and said you're violating this law, you're fined. Oracle and TikTok both would have to pay that money right this second.
Right.
And there's nothing saying that someone won't pursue that. So who knows? There's also other apps involved like Marvel Snap, and there's this app that people use to edit video called CapCut that is also a subsidiary of TikTok, ByteDance.
Right.
So
Well, actually, I want to ask you about that in a second, but the thing that gets me is, and you said we're early days for this, and obviously I see why you say it, but really, 2020, Trump says TikTok must be banned. It's terrible. 2024, he's saying we must save it. 2025, it's saying useless. Nothing has actually changed with TikTok itself in that time, has it?
A few things have changed. Well, do you remember why? I just wanted to mention this here. Do you remember why he wanted to ban TikTok in the first place?
I believe the story was that China could retrieve US user data or something.
That's the excuse after the fact. But what brought it about? So, quick anecdote. Basically, I don't know if you paid enough attention or if our listeners remember, but a bunch of Korean K-pop stars on TikTok, my gosh, they told their fans to go buy or reserve a bunch of seats at an upcoming rally during the presidential election and did not show up. And the president expected, Trump expected a full house, busting at the seams, people going to be... millions of people going to be ranging around outside because there's just so many reservations. And he showed up and there was 12 people there. And it made him so upset that he wanted to ban TikTok. True story. Yeah.
Okay. Joe, if somebody did that to me, I would think it was so funny. I would enjoy it. But it's a good thing then we have somebody as thick-skinned. Yeah, but okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But part of the reason why TikTok is back, and again, we don't need to get into it too much, is people have noted that things have changed on the website. They're starting to comply with right-leaning ideology censorship. Not trying to be partisan here. This is just literally what's happening. I can't soften the speech any more than that. They're censoring certain search terms. They're not allowing people to look up, say, women's health. They're not allowing people to look up things about birth control, stuff like that. And this has been proven multiple times using VPNs by switching countries and searching the same terms. So in the United States, TikTok is starting to control different aspects of the app based on what the administration has asked for. It's hard to say how far that's going to go, but it's in line with what's happening over on Meta, who has also started censoring different accounts, like Planned Parenthood accounts and things that would advertise birth controls or how explanations for how to, say, get an abortion are being fully blurred out or blocked on profiles on Instagram right now. So this is a wider thing that TikTok is also participating in at the request of Donald Trump. So very interesting times that we live in. Yes.
Yeah, who'd be a woman? But look, we've got to step away from this. Got to. You mentioned a thing there. What was it called? CapCut. The Meta. Like, thing is, I heard that it was it banned or whatever you said it was, but I'd never heard of the app until this week. So what is it, and should I be using it? Can I still use it?
CapCut is ByteDance. It's the same ones that do TikTok. So it's banned. All right, anything that's owned by ByteDance, including the game Marvel Snap, which is actually kind of a funny oopsie. But the owners of Marvel Snap are looking for new distributors, so they're no longer banned. Anyway, CapCut is also banned, which is an app that TikTok users use to edit the videos. It has all the little sound snippets in it and lets them stitch everything together. Right. If you watch a TikTok video, there's a very, very good chance it was edited with CapCut, and it's a good editor for that kind of media. It's what people use to make reels as well for Instagram. So that died with TikTok. Kind of is back because of this extension, whatever you want to call it. But it could go away again. So Meta, being what it is, decided to jump in and say, we're going to make an app called Edits. And it's basically CapCut, just more focused on getting people to use Instagram Reels instead. You can share videos anywhere, but there's an incentive to use Reels because there's an integration with their analytics, whatever. And I took the opportunity to write about Clips, another video editing app, but this one made by Apple that came out. Do you remember when Clips came out?
Well, I said I'd never heard of CapCut. I realised I had heard of Clips, and I may even have tried it out, but years ago. I mean, 4 years ago, more.
8 years ago.
8 years. Wow.
2017, we got the Clips app, and if that surprises you, it surprises me too, because they've had 2 major updates since, and one in 2021-ish and one a couple years ago, but virtually ignored. It's one of those weird experiment apps that Apple just kind of put out and forgot about. They had an opportunity to step in and compete, and maybe, and I had a conversation with John Gruber on Mastodon about this, because he wrote about me and during Fireball on this topic, and he agreed that it was a good time to bring up Clips, but he said, he disagreed with my premise, which was Apple would have wasted their time trying to compete here. Because my idea was, why bother go after something so ingrained as CapCut that will probably stick around anyway, and then everyone will just stick to that, and Apple will spend all their time and resources on nothing because no one's going to use it anyway, like Freeform or something. Like, it's there and it's cool, but how many people are actually utilizing it? I'm sure Freeform's great. It's just, did it step in and actually take over that space? And then Gruber brought up a good point of, well, Apple should do it anyway, because at the very least, they should be, if an app exists like Clips, they should be making the best app possible, to the point that Edits and CapCut are the ones copying Apple features, not the other way around. If they're not trying to do that, they should just delete the app from their ecosystem, right? This middle ground of it kind of just being this tool that exists that no one uses should not be the case with an Apple app. And he brought me over to his side. I agree with that, actually. I think it would be interesting to see what Apple would do if they fully Apple-fied a proper video editor like that.
I mean, they do have video editors, so you can do all of this stuff in Final Cut Pro, but granted, that's somewhat more expensive than for casual users. But I see your point. I see why you brought it up. It's just, there must be Clips users, and if it was just killed off, it
would be bad.
Yeah. So
for those users, well, here's the alternative, and this is what because he reframed it for me, and I understood it a little better. Of, imagine if Clips was as popular, like as powerful and useful as CapCut, and it was built into the iPhone. It was a default app, and people started buying, like, that was one of the sales points of, hey, you like TikTok, you use Reels or Shorts or whatever. If you use an iPhone they have this algorithmic generation system that will make your videos better than anyone else's, and that would drive young audiences to iPhone more than they already do. So it would be a compelling selling point for sure. But right now, as Clip stands, it's a party trick with Memoji, and that's about it.
Is CapCut built into TikTok, or is it a separate app?
It's a separate app, yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't have that kind of native stickiness. Something could take its place. Okay, all right. I'm still not rushing to try
Especially
it,
if it's banned. Yeah.
Well, yes, that's a small thing there. Kind of makes it more attractive in a way, doesn't it? Somehow dangerous and exciting, but illegal, and nobody would ever use it.
Yeah. I've never been a TikTok user, but I'll speak my piece here. This is my opinion. I feel like leading up to the ban, TikTok was one thing, and then after the ban occurred and the new administration took over, TikTok is now a different thing. And I'm not sure that it will ever be the old thing again. It's becoming more of what we already had with X and Meta, and shifting in that direction more and more, to the point that these alternatives that are popping up, which I wanted to mention here, Blue Sky has already started working on new video style feeds. They're working on increasing their length of video, which I think right now is only a minute. So they're trying to make it so you can create custom algorithmic feeds that feature video that are swipeable like TikTok, and they're creating their own integrations and also multiple people, including apparently someone being backed by Mark Cuban, is building a TikTok alternative that is going to run on the AT protocol, which is what Blue Sky runs on. So a lot of interesting stuff happening here. And while TikTok shifts more and more to be a partisan weapon for controlling speech, or whatever you want to say about it, because it is happening, whether you like it or not, that's what they're doing. I think it's going to push people to these other platforms. So it'll be interesting to see what these alternatives look like, because if you think TikTok is bad for this type of stuff, you can't necessarily go to Reels because they're doing the same thing. So where's the Blue Sky like alternative? They're coming, and some of them look really interesting, and I'm excited for it.
This episode is brought to you by Notion. Notion is one app and one service that combines your notes, documents and projects into one space that is simple and beautifully designed. And actually, for all the special features in it, for all the really smartly integrated AI features too, it is this single space idea that is what appeals to me about Notion. Okay, I do like that my Mac and my iPad have countless apps on them, and I do rather enjoy jumping between different tools, but then there are those so many times when you have to focus, and then this time you spend thinking which app to use, which tool, it's wasted time churning over the mechanics of the job instead of actually doing anything. Always, to get things done, you need to focus, and because Notion can be this one single place you go to for everything, when you use it, you are spending your time and your energy on achieving the results you need to. And actually, that's a pretty fair summary of the AI features in Notion too. I mean, okay, there are now countless AI tools in this world, but Notion AI is right there with you inside your work. There's no switching to a different tool to do something and come back. You just stay right there on the job, and you stay there focused. So tell Notion AI to search through your old projects, and what you need, it'll be right there. Or use Notion's automation tools so that it can do the organizing chores you used to have to spend time on, and let you instead concentrate on your work. The fully integrated Notion AI helps you work faster, write better, think bigger, doing tasks that would normally take you hours in just seconds. Notion is fun to use, let's not forget that, but part of the fun is the satisfaction that you are getting on with what you need and what you want to do. Try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/AppleInsider. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/AppleInsider, to try the powerful, easy to use Notion AI today. And when you use our link, you're supporting our show. Notion.com/AppleInsider, and thanks to Notion for its support of the Apple Insider podcast. How about this? I asked about native apps. We talked about Apple apps. Something completely uncontroversial. Apple Maps. Would that be in any way interesting this week for any reason at all?
I want to preface this with, guys, we get it. This is going to be a weird time, especially in the United States. Apple is based here. We can't avoid it. I'm sorry. If you come to this podcast to escape it, we try to keep it brief. We try to keep it nonpartisan. If there's an opinion stated, I'll say it's my opinion. Don't worry. But we gotta do this stuff and move on, and we're not going to hammer it. So expect in the coming weeks, we're not going to become a political show. We're not going to divide into what's and who's it's and whatever. Don't worry. Because I've heard some shows go what you would call quote unquote political, and it can get really nasty really fast. And that is not what we're here for. But anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, but before you do, I'd like to, you're worrying me now because I thought Apple Maps was, there's thing about Apple Maps and the Gulf of Mexico. I figured, is it just Apple Maps has put it in China again or done something like that? But no, it's a political thing, is it? Am I going to regret asking you? Because I missed this completely. No.
It's okay. This is actually a little bit more on the silly side. So there was one of the executive orders, which was one of the more actually legal ones that didn't violate the Constitution. He changed the name of a lot of locations. Mount Denali. Mount Denali in Alaska went back to
Mount Trump. No?
Well, it's named for a president, just not Trump. It's Mount McCormick. It was named Denali by the native people. We quote unquote discovered it and named it Mount McKinley after the president at the time, president-elect, I believe, at the time. And then in 2015, we changed it back to Mount Denali because we didn't actually discover a mountain surrounded by native people. But anyway, and then he changed the name back to Mount McCormick to, I don't know, take America's greatness back or whatever it is he's saying. But part of the renaming scheme, he renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I wanted to write a piece about this because a senator, House of Representatives, I don't know how to ever distinguish the two. A person who works in Congress, congressman from Texas, I forget the name and I don't care, said that, wrote a tweet to Tim Cook saying, hey, why is the Gulf of Mexico still called that in Apple Maps? It should be called the Gulf of America. Didn't you see the news yesterday? Well, it was, less than 24 hours since the executive order went out. Well, I wanted to write about maps and how we decide what names things are and who changes those names. So do you know anything about this fun little world?
Well, actually, would you believe I know a lot about it? I know the funny stories. Let me give you a happy, funny story. Right? There's a mapping company in Scotland here. And of course, the moment you bring it in my mind, I've blanked on the name, but they did not like the name of the street their office was on. So on their maps, they changed it. And it became, after a lot of years, it became the real name of it. Or in Spain, the cartographer was writing something and didn't know what a thing was called. And I think he wrote something like Quare, Quare. And it meant something like, I don't know what's here. And that's been copied on other maps as if there's a town of that name. Right. And there's so much history of when America was colonized, really, there were so many place names that are actually really abhorrent now, offensive stuff. And I can't say some of them. And most of them have been slowly changed. But then you have the whole issue of, is that erasing history? But they erased the previous name's history. It's a fascinating thing. I don't know how I missed this whole Gulf of wherever. So,
yeah, it's the Gulf of Mexico. It's so the first of all, I wanted to, you're a UK gentleman, so you would know about the Mercator projection, right?
Mercator, absolutely, yes, and I will defend
whatever the
it.
word is. Yes. Yeah. Mercator. Yeah, I don't put the right pronunciation on or enunciation on the right syllables. But anyway, the guy who made the map in 1569, you know what he did with that map?
I know that his map looks wrong, that it extends certain countries and all things, but it did it for a reason. It's a projection,
right.
And it's for navigation. It's there to do a job. Yes. And people who are against it are pro maps that have been equally altered, but for political reasons. I can get really angry about the Gall-Peters projection, otherwise known as the unmitigated Gall-Peters projection. Calm down, William. You were about to say, Wes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting things that have happened with maps, and the reason why I brought up the one from 1569 is because that was the map that was on the walls of schools in America for the last forever.
Right.
We grew up on that map. People looked at that map, and they actually thought that's what the world looked like, and it isn't. Greenland isn't the size of Africa, right? So,
Yeah.
There's been a lot of misconceptions based on this. Basically, the closer to the poles you get, the more extended things get. So Europe and North America, specifically the United States, look much bigger. Russia looks much bigger than it actually is. So I actually shared a link in this write-up to a website that lets you see the actual size of countries instead of on a map or globe. I thought it was cool. Antarctica is not the size of planet Earth. It's not literally a moon. It's just a guy down there, but it's shown huge because it's the bottom of the... Anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of map stuff. I know we're off on a tangent here, guys. I promise it's leading somewhere. So the United States have moved around maps. Education system have changed maps. We understand now better that we've been using maps wrong, or country sizes are wrong, whatever. And like you said, sometimes maps have political agenda in them. Sometimes they make the United States look huge because we want to look more powerful than China or whatever. I don't know. But maps are inherent to how we navigate and communicate around the world. They've been a part of our societies forever. And everyone has different names for things, right? Like in Japan, they don't walk around calling it Japan.
No.
Right, it's Nihon or Nippon, right? And then you go to Germany, it's Deutschland, right? Whatever. So how do we get to the point where we agree that it's Germany? And how do we get to the point that we agree that it's Japan? Well, there's actually in the United States and multiple governing countries a mapping group that's part of the federal government that decides on common place names, and then they take that information to a international UN-based mapping consortium, and they all agree on, okay, this is your name, let's all call it this. And then China and Russia get mad because they want to annex countries that they claim don't exist, and the rest of the world says no, they do exist, and put them on the map anyway, right?
Yeah.
Like maps in Russia wouldn't show Ukraine, or maps in China wouldn't show Taiwan, things like that. So in America now, because an executive order, what it is an order from the president to the federal government. It cannot be enforced against its people or private corporations or anything like that. So the order is executable. And so now in the United States, maps will be printed that are hung in schools and put in federal locations like government halls or whatever, wherever a map would be, that it will, instead of Gulf of Mexico in that body of water, it will say Gulf of America. But the United States government and federal offices are the only places that are required to do that. The global mapping people, the UN, I guarantee you they are not going to agree on this name. And in fact, like even the U.S. military will not be using this name because they have to communicate with other states. So they'll defer to what's called the UNGEN, the United Nations Group of Experts on Geographical Names. What a specific name. But anyway, the Gulf of Mexico will still be the Gulf of Mexico for around the world. And Apple and Google both make maps for the world based on UNGEN's solutions, not based on an individual country. So just like China can't ask for Taiwan to be erased, or Russia can't ask for Ukraine to be erased, America cannot enforce Apple to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico, even if a congressman from Texas is angry about it. So
Tim Apple might. Well, it's good to hear that this is being fought over. I mean, you've gathered I love the topic, but doesn't America have some more pressing issues to be having executive orders about, or am I just being?
No, it's a very interesting. Like again, this is the line. We've walked up to it of we can discuss these things, but we do not have to get into the politics. But yes, obviously, I have feelings. But yeah, there are definitely more pressing issues and things coming up. But this whole thing is going to be interesting to watch. Will Apple change the name for United States? Like if you travel to the UK, will it say Gulf of Mexico, but you go to the U.S., will it say Gulf of America? Who knows? Maybe it could be a geographical thing. Maybe they don't change it. We'll see what happens, who folds, and who really cares, because I'm still going to call it the Gulf of Mexico regardless of what a map says. So because that was its name 400 years ago before the United States, and that's the name it's going to continue to be.
But there is a technological interest there. I get that. But let's go full on technology here, because actually there's a thing. It wasn't even in my head, but you mentioned that you wanted to talk about it when we did this week's episode, and it is the exciting news of the new Samsung Galaxy something. You can see how much attention I paid. I didn't actually realize a new phone was launched this week, but you did, and you're thrilled about it. Can we explore that?
Well, funny enough, they're changing names again. They're getting rid of Ultra, and they're going to call it the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge. Just easily rolls off the tongue there. And the design hasn't changed much. The Edge, though, is apparently it's a super thin phone. They're chasing Apple's slim rumors, which are still rumors, not verified. But Samsung has done this multiple times before. And actually, I can't remember which one. They've done this and got it wrong. They followed a rumor, made an entire phone line, and Apple didn't do it. I can't remember which one it was.
Oh, is that like the iPad when everybody was so certain it was going to be called a slate computer, and Microsoft went on and on about all these slate computers. Then the day after the iPad, slate was never mentioned again. Yeah, it's something like that. It's just excellent. I don't know why I enjoy that, but okay.
Yeah, so Samsung came out with their slim phone, whatever. It's slim. Cool. We'll see what happens with it. Hopefully it doesn't catch on fire. But the thing I wanted to talk about is, and the design on the regular standard non-slim phones, non-edge phones are identical to last year. So there's nothing to even talk about there. They're the same phone. Some megapixels changed in cameras, yada, yada. We're not an Android podcast, but I did want to mention that they have software features that very closely mimic Apple features, and I thought it was very funny. Cool, good on them, because this is a good idea to copy. They now are getting live activities and have similar features to the lock screen, actively updated notifications, and a dynamic island-like interface.
They didn't have live activity. I love live activities. Why wouldn't they have had that for years?
I think different manufacturers implement it, but there's nothing in Google Android base operating system that is live activities. This is a Samsung branch. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm glad people have got them then. All right. So that's the phones are the same, but it's I quite like the name Edge. Not all that comes before it, but otherwise, software's the only thing. As a software guy, I like that.
The Edge was the phone before. Do you remember?
No, clearly not.
So they had the S7 Edge, I believe, and that was where one edge of the phone was a curved piece of glass that had notifications and a bar, like a touch bar.
Right. Yeah.
And you could lay your phone face down and still see the edge of the glass, and you could see like notifications and lights come in and stuff.
That sounds good. Yeah.
It was fine. A lot of people bought them. And now they're using it, I guess, to mean it's a slim edge or something, but whatever. The other software feature is, they came out with a lot of AI stuff, of course, and you can pull out your S Pen and draw on the screen a very badly drawn cat and turn it into a AI generated piece of slot with the press of a button. But you know what's really interesting is the UI for this is almost identical to Image Playgrounds on iPhone.
Well, it's obviously the only way to do it. Clearly.
Of course.
It's like a door in a wall. How many ways are you going to do it? There's no copying there. Form follows function is the term, isn't it? No, you're just looking at me now. I can tell. Okay.
I'm going to get a Hobbit door just because you said that.
Okay. Good that they got it. Interesting that they copied it. Software wins. I love that. But you're saying about them trying to get ahead of the iPhone 17 Slim. We have other news about the iPhone 17. Is it about the Slim? That the cameras... There's another rumor about the cameras being different or unusual, but I think you've written a highly suspicious piece about this in AppleInsider, haven't you?
I didn't cover this, but I helped cover it. There was I did some fishing around some Chinese social media to find the origin of this, because especially with this leaker, you have to, because there's Majin Buu seems to almost exclusively get information from other leakers. I'm sure some of them might actually be leaks someone hands to him, but more often than not, I've noticed that they're just posts that he's found on Weibo or Bilibili or whatever. So I reverse image searched and dug around and found that the image that he shared actually was shared previously multiple days before on Bilibili. So, and even that image that was shared on Bilibili was an old image screenshotted from a different social media account that was blurred, and that's where my investigation stopped because I could literally not trace it back any further. But it definitely did not originate from Majin Buu. So, in any case, who knows where this came from? It's so easy today to 3D print objects or create these weird mock-ups, and especially if you're taking like you can take a shaky cam photo of an iPhone back wrapped in plastic that's poorly lit with Sasquatch walking in the background and call it a leak. And that's basically what we got here. It kind of looks like there's a giant bar on the top of an iPhone with a big hole cut in it for a camera, and it's just horrendous. So I don't think this is going to happen. If it does, cool, I guess, but no, I just can't see it.
This does remind me of all those shots of UFOs where there's only one photograph of it. And like even back in the day when you had 12 exposures and things, you just got one. And you thought that was enough for it. It's not that you faked one at all. But
it's interesting.
Also, I've got to say, I must have missed quite a lot this week for some reason. Until you said it, I had never heard of, in fact, I'm not even sure I've heard it right now, a social media site called Bilibili.
It's a video. Right? It's like what is it like? It's YouTube and TikTok meshed together. Like you make comments on short form video, but they also have long form, and they don't have like an aspect ratio. So it's more of a YouTube. It's weird. It's basically YouTube, I guess.
All right, I might look into that. My name is William, but I'm named after an uncle who called himself Billy, so all of my family call me Billy. And I was just in Ireland with a lot of the family, and they were calling me, and I had to remember that's me. That's me they're talking about, and I had to introduce myself as that. Okay. Well, I read Weibo every now and again, so,
Yeah, so in order for me to get around the website, I actually had to screenshot and then go to Apple Photos and then translate the text from the image to figure out certain buttons. So that was fun.
But Safari Translate does work on Chinese. I use that quite a lot. It didn't for this.
You can't use Bilibili in Safari for more than one video. The minute you try to move to a different video, it forces you to install the app, yes.
Oh, forget that then. That's rubbish. All right.
So I had to install the app and go in. And it was a whole thing.
Well, in this point, then, clearly you're not going to find me on Bilibili. I can be found on YouTube. I'm still safe on YouTube. It's 58 keys. And email is better for me, william@appleinsider.com. Wes, are you going to abandon Blue Sky and go the Bilibili route? I can't take that name seriously, but yeah, is that where people can find you now? Bilibiliing. That's a verb. Okay. Yes. After you.
I'm on Blue Sky for sure. Pretty active there. You can also get me on Mastodon. I've been getting a lot of good emails lately, questions about the show and just different commentary and clarifications and stuff like that. Always happy to hear from our listeners there. So, and if you have any feedback, of course, on our topics today, it was a heavy week. A lot of things happened, especially in the political sector. I promise, because of the heaviness of this week, it's likely not going to continue. Future episodes are probably not going to be that heavy. There's probably going to be a thing here and there that happens as always, but it just happened to be inauguration week. A lot happened, so there was a lot to discuss. So don't worry, guys. This isn't going to become that kind of show. But yeah, if you want to comment on any of that stuff, you're more than welcome to reach out. I'm always happy to talk about it. But in any case, please reach out. Blue Sky, email, Mastodon.
I think we can possibly reveal now that we're actually planning a musical episode. So that's something to stick around for, isn't it? Okay. A musical comedy episode with clowns, with everything. Let's go happy for a while. And perhaps that's something we should keep to Apple Insider Plus. Apple Insider Plus, I was going to say it's a silly thing, but it isn't. It's a kind of the serious in a different way thing. It's not about the news. And I've just activated Siri. That's interesting. Silly and Siri are obviously quite close there. I hope it didn't set anything else going. Oh, I like that. I'm going to have that. With Apple Insider Plus, the thing is that we're all using this gear and we are choosing to use it, and we choose to use it for reasons that it's very good for, and also there are things that are really irritating as well. Apple Insider Plus lets us kind of relax, kick about these things, talk about stuff like this. And this time, if you're a subscriber, Apple Insider Plus is going to be about this idea of the ideal Apple app, or the ideal iPhone, the ideal, well, maybe in my case more than Wes's, the ideal Mac that doesn't otherwise exist yet. But that's coming up in a moment. In the meantime, thank you very much for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, Notion. And Wes and I will be back, where Apple Insider Plus and Apple Insider will continue every week, as long as there's Apple news, and I think that means we're going to be around for a while, doesn't it?
They got a little bit of money. I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, be okay. Right, but speak to you in future episodes.
Yep, talk then.